Hello, my name is Dr. Savannah Rose, and I'm a neuropsychologist here at Prevea Health. Patients typically come to me when they have noticed some concerns about their memory or their thinking, either after an injury or as part of either normal aging or learning as kids. My ultimate goal, I think, would be for patients to feel like whatever I have given them has impacted their lives in a positive way. So I really strive to make my recommendations tailored to a patient's specific needs and their specific concerns. Some patients, like kids who have diagnosed with learning disabilities, who then get support in school and they come back, or I get a message from their parents a couple years later and they're like caught up or more on track. That's amazing. And for adults, sometimes it looks like people improving from an injury or people having better managed some of those medical conditions that are impacting their body health and now noticing improvements in their day-to-day life. I think that's really my favorite part. I really hope that people can come in, get answers to the questions that they might have and feel like they're, not quite as floundering as they were when they came in and they have a path forward.